Video games have made a pretty big impact on my life. Wandering around the castle in Super Mario 64, driving cars I could never afford in Gran Turismo 3 and 4, those are memories of my childhood that I will remember forever. However, through high school I would discover AVGN and Egoraptor and learn about games that I never grew up with. Games from the Sega Genesis, Atari 2600, and of course, the Nintendo Entertainment System. Castlevania will be seen by many as an unforgettable, and well unforgiving, series of games from the now questionable developer Konami. They're nothing to gawk at now, but back in the day they were making hit after hit. Along with Castlevania there was Contra, Gradius, Metal Gear Solid, DDR, really just too many games to count. Personally, I am very fond of Castlevania for a specific reason. I enjoy the games as much as countless other people. It's a topic that's been talked about numerous times. But one thing that I love most about these games is the music. In my opinion, Castlevania has some of the most iconic and memorable music you will ever listen to. There are few that can top the production quality of famous songs such as Vampire Killer and Bloody Tears. And apparently others think so too, because internet pop culture marketplace Mondo has released vinyl records for the first 4 Castlevania games, and everyone is hitting the turntable for a review. Please take note that these aren't going to be reviews on the games themselves. Rather, I'll talk about each soundtrack in detail, as well as add brief history lessons that explain certain differences with each album. But enough talk, let's have at it. Starting off, we have the first Castlevania from 1986. This vinyl comes in a 10-inch blood red which spins at 45 RPM rather than the standard 33 1/3 RPM. The artwork by DC Vertigo comic artist Becky Cloonan absolutely nails the style and mood of the game it represents. Gritty and foreboding visages of Dracula and the Medusa staring at you are awesome, and the centerfold shows the entire castle map with their respective boss. Very cool. The music is, of course, timeless. Every song has a triumphant, energetic vibe that lets you know that you're mowing down monsters and hunting down vampires with nothing but your trusty Morningstar and your quick wits. A weird thing to note is that during the song Walking on the Edge, it'll play sound effects from the game while the music plays. This is something that is present on almost all the albums in some form, and it's kind of funny and unexpected to hear on these records. Unlike the soundtracks that followed this one, the music doesn't use any additional sound enhancements, but this record is always a good one to spin with the rest of them. Alright, let's address the elephant in the room. Simon's Quest may be considered a less than satisfactory experience from other games in the franchise, but there is no denying that the soundtrack that backed it was legendary and badass. Before we get into the soundtrack, let's talk about an important piece of hardware that makes Simon's Quest unique. This here is the Famicom Disk System, or FDS if you want to sound cool. This was a peripheral that utilized proprietary floppy disk hardware in order to enhance certain video games that were, most of the time, already released in cartridge form for the base Famicom hardware. Super Mario Bros. 2 and The Legend of Zelda are common suspects for this. However, the ace up the FDS's sleeve was an additional synthesizer that was wired to the RAM adapter. This added a 6th sound channel that, for better or for worse, gave video game music some unique charm. Here's some examples. Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest would soon get the disc system treatment, and with that is a vinyl where either side plays different versions of the soundtrack. Comic book artist Eric Powell gives us some pretty visceral front and back artwork, with the centerfold being a bird's eye view of the world explored in the game, which extends to the 10-inch emerald green vinyl with day and night center labels. Man, you gotta love these details. The soundtrack is a very enjoyable mix of chill and chill-inducing tunes. However, we run into a dilemma of less is more here. The NES version actually sounds better in my opinion. The FDS seems like it didn't utilize its full potential, resorting to a bell-like sound for most of its runtime. But this is a minor complaint for me. This soundtrack is still a banger, even if the game it represents is a resounding meh. All I know for sure is, the Castlevania team would push the sound capabilities of the Famicom to a climax unlike anything ever heard. These next composers told me not to read this, but god damn it, I'm gonna read it anyway, because I wrote it, and it's the truth. I fucking love this soundtrack. It is the best soundtrack ever, period. Ladies and gentlemen, Castlevania 3! Say what you want, there is no beast of a soundtrack that I've ever listened to more than Castlevania 3, or as it's known in Japan, Akomajo Densetsu. Every song just nails that Castlevania feel, and the fan reception over the years from nerds like me is numerous. Castlevania 3 was the most expansive of the NES trilogy, with a tough-as-nails difficulty that has put plenty of controllers out of commission. But the one thing that sticks out like a sore thumb is the music, which this time around has been pressed onto two 12-inch records. More on that later. For now, let's enter another history lesson. During the surge of the Famicom in Japan during the 80s, Nintendo and third-party developers were endlessly experimenting with ways to enrich gaming experiences for the consumer by using memory management controllers, or MMCs for short. Konami stands out as the developer with 7 different chipsets at their disposal by the end of the Famicom's production life. The one Konami used for Castlevania 3 was the VRC6. Aside from allowing the Famicom to do some neat visual tricks, its power lies in the audio expansion. 3 additional, more flexible sound channels on top of the Famicom's initial 5. The end result is a rock opera of a score that blesses your ears with arpeggios, note slides, and echoed lead sections. Let's look at the vinyl. New York City artist Sachin Tang provides a very striking masterpiece of album artwork that's bleeding out the seams with details. The front shows the principal cast fused into an abomination which resembles Dracula's second form, and the back sports the monsters you fight through the game coming out of Dracula's head. There's a lot to unpack here. The centerfold sees game-correct maps with some cool details. My favorite of them all, however, can be found in the 12-inch orange vinyl with the game's font used in the center labels. These records were truly made with the fans in mind. I mentioned it already, but the music in this particular game is just so damn immaculate. Whichever version you prefer, every theme seems to blend seamlessly with the level it plays on. My personal favorite combo is the song Anxiety with the Ghost Ship level, or the song Overture while climbing the stairs to fight Dracula. There are obviously auditory differences between the US and Japanese games, but it turns out there is a quote-unquote definitive version of this soundtrack that mixes the two together, called CV3 no Densetsu or whatever. Great choice of title. As we wrap up the NES trilogy of Castlevania games, let's finish this off with a 16-bit bang. Seen by many as the best game in the numbered series, Super Castlevania 4 brought the series to the Super Nintendo in an amazing way, mostly due to gameplay fixes that were seen as handicaps from the first 3 games. But one thing that stayed tried and true was the music quality. The Super Nintendo utilized an independent sound chip called the SSMP, built by Sony, producing 8 channels of stereo sound. And crazy enough, Konami actually managed to use only 6 for the entire score and saved the last 2 for in-game sound effects. Interesting. Anyway, we have another 12-inch 2LP once again, now in a moonlit blue color. The artwork was done by French artist Genolab, with Simon wielding the boomerang weapon up front and a sneering Dracula upon his throne on the back. I'm just realizing the upside down cross on that throne too. The centerfold is more or less the same thing from before, in respect to the game of course. I'm personally on the fence with this artwork. It looks a bit cartoonish from some angles, and it slightly contrasts with the artwork we've seen before. Now, I might get a lot of backlash for the music here, but I don't find myself listening to this game's music that often. Yes, the album is an amazing blend of church organs, woodwind and string sections, and in-your-face percussion. But after multiple listening sessions, it feels the slightest bit repetitive. And no, it's not because the latter half of the soundtrack has remixed versions of particular songs from past games. And the songs that stand out really stand out. I'm talking to you, Simon's theme being all epic and whatnot. But it's more of what we love about these soundtracks on a much grander scale, so take it what you will. As I close off possibly my longest review to date, I wanted to thank all my subscribers for staying with me and being patient while I try to put these videos out for you in my seemingly small room. As someone who's obsessed and literate with video games down to a T, these albums and games that represent it were a topic I've been wanting to do for a long time. Consider this a review that will expand the scope of what I write about. Don't worry, we still have a lot of Vaporwave to cover. Next time you boot up your console to play some classic Castlevania, don't forget to jam out to the soundtrack as you fight your way to kill Dracula. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this, consider subscribing. Don't forget to support the label and artists, and follow my socials for more behind the scenes content. As always, here's 2 videos for you to check out, and I'll see you guys in the next one.